Let me just start off by saying it feels like only 3 months ago I was doing the final review wrap up for season two. So I can't believe we're already at the season finale for season three of Preacher. Fantastic episode. All of the manic buildup leading into this episode was worth it because we got a payoff and then some. I judge a season finale by two major criteria. Do we get a lot of good answers for everything that's been built up, and do we have a really good setup for what's to come next season? And I gotta say, this episode aces it across the board. Let me hit on some of the major points that we can talk about that are not just from this episode, but are questions for us to keep in mind going into season 4. Fingers crossed. I'm assuming there's going to be, even though we haven't got an announcement yet. Satan and Dog / God. Very interesting because we've gotten two pieces of information from this episode. One, both of them were present during the flashback in the beginning with Jesse and Gran'ma. So it's very interesting to see exactly how much Jesse's been in their plans from the very beginning. And then we also see how Dog has been involving himself in what's been going on with Tulip. We see the way Satan's been involving himself with Gran'ma. Now, of course, by the time this episode's over, we see Satan's in a kind of a tough position to be involving himself in any plans anymore. Taken care of by the Saint of Killers, who, again, it doesn't matter whether you were the one who made the decision or if you were part of the committee. If you're one of the ones who made the decision to kill the Saint's family, well, you know what's going to happen. The Hitler Hell scenario, stemming from what just happened with the Saint and Satan, that's very interesting. Because the way they've taken Hitler and made him sympathetic and then reminded us that he's Hitler, slightly sympathetic again, and now reminding us even more. Now, hey, remember, he's the Fuhrer, and now he's going to possibly have the power of hell behind him, because it sure as heck seems like the Angel of Death is very comfortable working with him and hooking him up with his plum cake. So again, I think that's another scenario for us to look at. The Saint and Eugene, very interesting also, because the Saint originally was going after Jesse, but now the Saint pretty much has a vested interest in Jesse being right, or at least trailing Jesse if Jesse's going to be tracking down God, because God has the answer for what he did to the Saint's family. Eugene along the way I think is very interesting, because I know wanting to get him out of hell because Eugene is truly an innocent who is trapped, but you get a sense that Eugene is coming along. I understand where Eugene is coming from because he wants to see Jesse again. I think he has a bone or two to pick with him about the whole hell thing, but why is the Saint bringing him along? That's, I think, a dynamic that's going to play out very interestingly going into season 4. Herr Starr, Featherstone, the whole thing now that it's like, hey, Herr Starr, Featherstone, we've laughed, we've thought it's funny, you've had great lines. By the end of this episode, we are reminded that Herr Starr is now leading a very powerful organization called the Grail. And from what we assume happened with Hoover, because I'm just going to sadly assume that Hoover's dead, it just doesn't seem like they're playing around anymore. They've got their hands on Cassidy. He's already talking about bringing in the Grail's worst torture, and literally knows what that could possibly mean from Herr Starr and Grail standards. And you've got Featherstone, who's just like chomping at the bit to just get into some worldwide raging war. So that end scene where we see the complex in the headquarters, that was truly breathtaking leading into the next season. Cassidy, again, it's out of the frying pan into the fire. He did something good, only to have something good from earlier come back to bite him in the form of Hoover, who sold out the Children of Blood and sold out Cassidy. They swept in. They killed off all but 2. Thankfully, the 2, I'm kind of glad, made it through, and swept Cassidy away again, using Cassidy as the lead to get Jesse and Tulip out to their location, which, as Herr Starr said, his plan is to just torture the hell out of Jesse. The Langels, very interesting. I mean, we can safely assume Jody's dead. We don't see TC dead, and the last we see of Gran'ma is that she's basically shrunken in, sunken, and everything like that. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't see dust. I didn't see any long-term bodies. And hell, we're talking about God here, so people are getting brought back from the dead, so even a body doesn't count. I don't know if this is the last we've necessarily seen of the Langels, that maybe their tentacles might extend a little further than just Angelville. And last but certainly not least, Jesse and Tulip. It's very interesting. As much as I love their dynamic with Cassidy, I'm very fascinated to see where they are going to go for at least part of next season on their own. Do they resort back to the old habits? Have they changed so much that it's just a completely new dynamic? I mean, when you're Tulip and you've almost literally damn near gone to hell, and you're Jesse and you are cursed to go to hell, that makes for a very interesting dynamic. And my hope is they don't fall back into old practices and that they just essentially make sure everybody's on the same page. Specifically because Tulip needs to make sure Jesse's aware Dog God, however we want to refer to him, he has a serious problem with Jesse coming after him, and more importantly, he has a serious issue with Genesis affecting his quote-unquote master plan. But a fantastic end to the season. I cannot wait for season 4. Before we go, let's cover some of the main quotes. First off, listen to me, you someday piece of shit. That was from Gran'ma to a young Jesse. For Christ's sake, you killed a man with a corn cob. That was God to Tulip, who almost seemed more proud, which she should be. That was actually very impressive. But today you burn. Jesse to Gran'ma. Wait, I shouldn't have said that about crows. That's the angel of death to the saint, and the saint teaching her very quickly what it's like to have the idea of eyes being torn out of your head. And last but certainly not least, it's time to play some fucking checkers. If there was ever a line to demonstrate that Herr Starr is no longer messing around, it is that one. Cannot wait for season 4. Thank you guys for joining us for this entire ride.